Please make it happen. Come down. Ooh, you make my high come down. Always tripping when you come around. Never have to cut you out like right now. You see, I don't have to drive me. You can say that for your mama. Maybe you should smoke some. Me try to marijuana. I was never you good. The vibe was straight. Showed you a couple of things and they feel the change. I treated you right. Everything was a gift from a time to your bag and the color on your lip. Yeah, you plenty of
Welcome to the Seahawks Man-to-Man podcast, powered by The Athletic. Shout out to the company. My name is Michael Sean Dugar. I'm here with my co-host, Christopher Kidd. Make sure you both follow us on the tweet machine. You guys know where to follow me. We do this all the time. I'm verified, yada, yada, yada. Chris, talk to him.
Not verified, but that's okay. CKid206, and that's CKIDD206.
All right. Make sure you also subscribe to YouTube channel if you're listening on the audio version. We have a special guest on the podcast with us this week as we talk about the Seahawks Week 2 matchup against the Tennessee Titans. We have the homie who is verified on Twitter, Ben Arthur, beat writer for the Tennessean, covers the Titans, also known as Blue Check Ben. Ben, what's going on, man?
Yes, sir. What's up, guys? Happy to be on with y'all. Miss you guys out here in Nashville, but excited to, really cool for me, my first road trip of the regular season, going back home to Seattle, for this Titans Seahawks game. So, really excited to be on with you guys and, let's get into it, man.
Yeah, happy to have you back in town this weekend. Sad to see you go for multiple reasons, but one of them is because our basketball team that's supposed to play the Seahawks took a hit with you leaving. Like I was
and
really
Joe fan too. He's not on the beat either anymore. So man, you lost a shooter. You got someone in me who's got some athleticism and whatnot. So yeah.
Yeah, we took a hit, like, and you left, and then Joe left in like a few months span. We got Alyssa Charleston working for Q13. She played D1 ball, but like we took a hit. So like, if you ever come back, we could.
Oh
use
yeah,
you.
if you could just fly me out. I know Bobby's still out there, probably talking his smack. He's been running from me for a couple years at this point. So I'm ready to go whenever. Ball is life. So yeah, just holler whenever you need me.
Oh, all right, we'll do, man. Because we definitely needed that. But let's talk about this matchup. I think everyone, whether you're a fantasy owner of Derrick Henry or not, or just a casual viewer, is wondering how the hell he got shut down by the Arizona Cardinals in Week 1, and when the Titans got smoked. How in the world did Arizona pull that off?
Yeah, I think it really starts with the lack of practice time, for this offensive line, as much experience as they have up front. I mean, they just didn't have, practice time over the summer, and that could really be said for the entire offense, Titans offense, and we could get into more of that later. But, Lewan, he didn't practice, all that much. He was coming off a torn ACL last October. Was limited basically most of the summer. Didn't really start ramping up until the the last couple weeks of the preseason. So he to come out and have a guy like Chandler Jones right off the bat, is a tough go. In run or pass. Their center Ben Jones and their right guard Nate Davis, were on the COVID list, and the Titans had a COVID issue. In the preseason, those were two guys who were on the list for a minute. So they missed tons of time, at the right tackle position. They had a few guys. I mean, that was kind of like the one spot no one really knew who was going to be the starter, going into the season. They had a few guys competing, but then, even though the guys they had, slated to compete at that spot missed time too. Kendall Lamb, missed time. Ty Sembrello, another guy at that spot, missed time. Lamb is someone we saw, kind of step in for Lewan a little bit at left tackle when Lewan was out. But just overall, man, it really comes down to, I think, that offensive line not having a ton of practice time together. I can only think of a handful of practices they had as a full starting O-line. And you look at that film, I mean, there are times, those guys, especially on the inside, they just miss their blocks. And so, Derrick would get stuffed, in the backfield. And for as dynamic as this offense is supposed to be, it all starts with Derrick, right? And if you can't get him going, if those guys up front, aren't sharp, I think it all kind of, it's the struggles start there. So I think that's really what it comes down to, the O-line play.
Is that something you think can be replicated by the Seahawks? Because what's the stat, Chris? And when's the last time Derrick was held under 100 yards?
I looked it up. I was curious to see the last time Derrick Henry was held in back-to-back games under 100 yards, and that was in 2019. I want to say week 6, 7, and 8. So those 3 weeks, he did not eclipse 100 yards. Ever since then, it hasn't happened. So
he's been killing it.
To Mike's question, yes. Is it possible that you see the Seahawks stifling that run game again, and Derrick Henry does not eclipse 100 yards?
Ooh, yeah. Well, that's a great question. I think it's certainly possible. But, I think just, it goes as simply, it really goes to practice, right? Like they're going to get a full week of practice this week ahead of Seattle. I think just, the reps are really going to help those guys. And I don't think they're going to look as bad in Seattle as they did in the opener, just because, of the time I think they'll be able to get this week. But is it possible? Yeah, I think it's certainly possible. I think, a key thing for the Titans, just in terms of getting that offense going, will be I think a quick passing game would help those O-line guys, because it was tough, because not only were they not able to block in the passing game, but they weren't able to establish the run, and as an O-lineman, when you can't do either of those, it just it's a shot to your confidence, right? So, I think if from a Tennessee perspective, I think if you can, have some quick passing, early, kind of get those guys some of that confidence, and then just with the run game, it translating to the run game as well. I think we could see a better result from the Titans. But yeah, is it possible? Sure. I mean, I think that there's still, some concerns. I think with Taylor Lewan just not being 100% right now. So yeah, I don't have a great answer to your question. I'd just say, I think a quick passing game is really going to help, just in terms of that Titans O-line, in terms of their confidence and translating that into run blocking. I think so. I think that'll be a key for Tennessee.
You could tell rewatching the game that, like, after maybe the first half, that they were just like, "Yo, we're done running it," because it was just not working. Chandler Jones had other plans. Corey Peters had other plans. J.J. Watt had other plans. I want to stick with the Titans O-line here, because that matchup is going to be like the key one that defines the game. I think. Let's talk about your man Taylor Lewan here, because he has, I think, he's the front runner right now for corniest tweet in the NFL. Like, it got sent to me all weekend, because I was just like, this. I wasn't paying attention too much, and then it got sent. Let me pull up this tweet here.
I'm pulling it up too.
Let's see. I just had it. Okay, it's pinned to the top of his page, which I don't think he realizes is a bad look. It's a bad look. He says, "Got my ass kicked today. No way around that. I let the team and the fans down. Thank you, Chandler Jones." He @s Chandler Jones, by the way. "Thank you, Chandler Jones, for exposing me. It will only force me to get better." I don't know if you guys talked to him after the game, Ben, or what the hell is right? What's up with this guy, man? Does he not realize that that's a bad look?
No, yeah, it is corny, but I think that's also just who Taylor Lewan is. If you've spent any time around, this team, kind of the personality of this team, I mean, it really starts with Lewan. He's probably the most colorful guy in that locker room. And, when he feels like he needs to say something, he'll say it, positive, or negative. He wasn't made available to us, after the game. And so I think that tweet was part of him just, giving his apologies, to the fans, for what happened. And, I mean, I thought it was, kind of corny too, but if it's something he felt like he wanted to get off his chest, I mean,
clearly,
it's his, yeah. it's his life. He can do that, if he wants. I mean, I think just the big thing is, okay, you send out that tweet, just don't look that bad. I mean, you just didn't need to say anything, right? Just be better next week. I think that's what the Titans would like. I think that's what fans would like. Just play better. You don't need to apologize and thank the other guy for for just humiliating you. You don't really need to do that. But like I said, I think that's really just Taylor's personality. And like I was saying earlier, when you asked about the O line, it's Taylor, he's still working his way back to 100%. I mean, that doesn't excuse the extent of how bad he looked in certain
he looked real
but
bad.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, but to come off an ACL, your first real game back, and you go up against the top 3, top 4 guy on the edge in the NFL. I mean, that's tough, and so yeah. I mean, Lewan just got to play better. You don't need to tweet about it. I think that was what you look at kind of the replies to that tweet. A lot of people were like,
I'm gonna look at some right now.
Yeah, like I mean, I got to look at some of those again too, but I mean, it just comes down to just play better. We don't need Titans fans, Titans coaches don't need you to apologize for it. Just kind of go out and do it. So I think that's just what it comes down to.
You mentioned earlier about having a quicker pass game and how that would probably eliminate what you witnessed on Sunday against the Cardinals. Taking that same comment you made, are you looking for that overall as the season goes along, or is that something that you think they should implement going up against this new revamped Seahawks defensive line, which you were familiar with the past few seasons as you were covering the Seahawks as well in Seattle? So what is your take there? Is that something a game-by-game basis, or you think they should implement that throughout the year?
Yeah, I mean, it could be either or. I think the frustration for a lot of people here was that early on, it was very obvious that the Titans couldn't block Chandler Jones for more than half a second.
It was very obvious from the first play, I believe. Yes,
exactly. Yeah, and then they never adjusted, right? And I know in Seattle, in the past, we've talked about how why isn't Shoddy, or why aren't the Seahawks adjusting offensively? It was kind of like the same deal with what happened in the Titans in week 1, with Chandler Jones, and even JJ Watt had some good moments there too. The Titans just didn't really seem to adjust. You obviously can't block him. Having Tannehill just kind of sit there, have some time to kind of look at his, get through his reads, his first, second read, that's not going to happen. And they didn't, they didn't kind of, do that, for whatever reason. So yeah, and then you look at the Titans the Seahawks defensive front, as you alluded to, Chris. I mean, it's another strong front, and I saw that Darrell Taylor play well. Monet, on the inside at that nose tackle spot, looked good as well. So and then you have Dunlap and Kerry Hyder who came in over the offseason. So yeah, it's really going to depend on how the Titans start offense, up front on the offensive line. But if you kind of have the same situation as you had last week and you find that you're not able to block guys, I mean, you just need to go to that quick passing game. Just give the guys up front some confidence. Don't kind of expose them like that. Just kind of get something going. So it's, I don't have a great question to that, Chris. I mean, it really just depends kind of how the game, the flow of the game goes. I don't think the Seahawks, front is, maybe it's not as, dominant, at least on the edges as the Cardinals, do. But yeah, I think it really just depends on kind of matchups and then how the flow of the game goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have Shane Waldron either, so I feel it.
Well, yeah, no, that's fair. I mean, honestly, the Titans sound like the Seahawks. So last year, like,
Yeah,
can't adjust. Need to
yeah.
get the quick passing game going. I think that's
Yeah.
something we're all familiar with over here. And maybe we'll see how. I didn't get to the Jags game. We'll see how Shoddy's doing with that. And Daryl Bell, they got smoked, but I didn't know if it was it.
I haven't watched that game because I was mainly watching. I wanted to see the Titans game against the Cardinals, so I was watching a little bit of that. So sometime this week, I will definitely go back and watch some Jags and see what happened there because they got smoked.
Yeah, I mean, they were playing Houston, and Houston is supposed to be awful. Like,
they don't have a quarterback.
They don't have a quarterback. They're probably one of the least talented rosters in the NFL. You know, for them to do that, I mean, you know, they got issues. So you know.
God bless Trevor Lawrence. Hopefully he makes it through. I haven't got a chance to ask you this question because you haven't been an opposing beat writer yet. But let's do it. Take this answer wherever you want to go. Is Ryan Tannehill good?
I think he is. You know, I think there's an argument, you know, over the last 2 seasons he's been, you know, and the numbers I think back this up. I mean, he's performed like a top 10 quarterback. I think, you know, a big thing like with him is that he's just he's a perfect fit for the Titans offense, the way they want to do things, kind of establish Derrick Henry, do the play action and hit AJ over the middle, stuff like that. I mean, I think the system has really, you know, magnified his strengths. And, you know, I think it showed up, you know, especially last year. I mean, you know, I think the Tannehill reputation, I think a lot of people still think he is what he was in Miami and playing under what's his name, Gase.
Yeah, Adam Gase.
And I think that, you know, playing under him just kind of shot his confidence. He's never, you know, he obviously had some injuries in Miami too, but I think Tennessee is just the perfect, you know, fit for him. And I don't think he gets enough, you know, credit for his toughness too. Like he's not afraid to, you know, kind of be aggressive, you know, running the ball. He's a former wide receiver, you know, at Texas A&M. He has way more athleticism than even I gave him credit for, you know, before coming here. You know, he's solid. You know, he didn't have a chance to really show it in the opener because like he had like less than half a second to try and make a play, or had Chandler Jones all up in his face after a rollout.
That was bad.
That was bad.
That was real bad.
Yeah. Like how do you forget about Chandler Jones? Like, how is he a free rusher? That was crazy to me. But overall, yeah, I do think he's good. I think he's performed like a top 10 quarterback. I think a big part of that is, you know, the Titans system. And I think because of the system, he's playing with more confidence. And I think people, you know, although the opener didn't show it, I think with so many weapons now, and, you know, you hope that Julio is at least a little bit of what he was in, you know, Atlanta. You know, AJ is a dominant receiver. I think he could be be looked at as a top 5 guy. You know, by the end of this year. We know what Derrick is. You know, the O-line didn't look great in the opener, but they do have a lot of experience up front. I think all of those will help the world to show more, like to help Tannehill to show the world more that he is a good quarterback. Is he on the level of Mahomes, Rodgers, Russ? No. But is he in that second tier? I'd say so. Between maybe 10 to maybe 9 to 12th best quarterback, I'd put him in that category.
That's fair.
You think Ryan Tannehill's good?
Yeah, I think he's good.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Where do you stand with it?
Yeah, we didn't say he's great. I mean,
right.
He's good. He's definitely good.
No, he's my fantasy quarterback in like 3 leagues, so he better be good. Like he's fumbling and stuff and throwing picks. Yes, although if you watch that game, the Cardinals game, this is where like, you know, tape becomes important. Like he was hitting guys in the hands in the end zone, and they're dropping it. I think the pick he threw hit Julio in the hands. Maybe?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, it was crossed the middle, deflected, and then I think it was scooped up out of the air. So There were some, his receivers didn't help him. That's for sure. His numbers could have been better.
Which is crazy, Chris, because you would think that if anybody's receivers are going to help somebody, it would be Ryan Tannehill's receiving duo of A.J. Brown and Julio Jones.
Wild. Let's talk about duos. Let's talk about wide receivers. It's funny because when getting ready to talk about this topic, the one image that comes to mind is that training camp when all three of us would go over to the side and watch the one-on-ones or watch the receivers, because I think for the most part, all three of us enjoy the battle between the cornerbacks and wide receivers. It's going to be an interesting matchup come Sunday against the Tennessee Titans when they travel to Seattle. When you look at DK, Tyler Lockett, and Julio Jones and A.J. Brown, and the dominance those guys can have when everything is hidden. Unfortunately, it sounds like, well, it looked like, we watched it, we saw it, Julio didn't have his best day. A.J. Brown was somewhat of a non-factor. But then on the Seahawks side, DK and Tyler start the season off on fire. DK took him a half to get going, but for the most part, watching the game, I figured he was going to get his touches. What are you looking forward to in this matchup, especially with Julio and A.J., because they have to respond, right? They need to. You said practice is pretty important. I'm sure DK and Tyler, they have a nice little groove going with the new offensive coordinator. What are you expecting with Julio and A.J. Brown in that regard for coming into this matchup week 2, especially now that the cornerback situation is still up and down with the Seahawks? They ship out Akello Witherspoon. They bring in, I don't know how many corners in the last, 2 weeks, Mike?
Yeah, about three or four.
They brought in so many people every time there's a new update. So what are you looking forward to in this upcoming matchup between these guys?
Yeah, I think, if you're looking for a confidence builder, if you're the Titans at receiver, I mean, going up against those Seahawks corners, all the question marks there, you definitely look at that as an opportunity to kind of get a rhythm and for Tannehill to get some, a nice connection with Julio and AJ. To start, like I'd say, I don't have any concerns about AJ. I mean, he's elite. Like you should have seen the way he was killing, his Titans DBs in practices. Like, he is like, in obviously I didn't have the reference point of, being in Nashville his first couple years, but even from talking to guys on the beat, he just looked a step, better. He's a little bit leaner this year. I think he's a little bit crisper. He's a wide receiver with a running back body. Like he's a yak, monster. He usually doesn't ever go down on that first hit, maybe that second hit too. And I just think because of, the offense that the Titans run, he doesn't always get the same looks that maybe DK and Tyler get. So, and then AJ did have sort of a kind of a knee thing going on, over the summer. He felt really, really healthy entering the year. After he had some like cleanup surgery during the off season on both knees, but it was considered minor. But then apparently there was some kind of setback. But he honestly looked fine, heading into the opener, and then in he did make some plays in that first game. They weren't able to get the balls to the receivers a lot, but he did look fine, and I expect him to, start to ascend, maybe in this second game. Kind of my question mark is sort of with Julio, because he did,
Quintorris Jones,
Quintorris Lopez, Quintorris Lopez Jones or something.
Oh man, yeah,
you got it right, Ben. You're right.
Wow.
Yeah, I think I'm right. Yeah,
you are. Yes.
Yeah. So, but I think the concern maybe is there a little bit. He, like, first of all, he like doesn't practice, and that wasn't like a problem like at the end of his tenure with the Falcons, just because I think, well, they weren't competitive for one, but he'd been with Matt Ryan so long that I don't think it really mattered. But then where you have a situation, that you had, in training camp this year where, he missed so much time. And that part of that may have been because he was a bit banged up. There was a play early in training camp where he kind of like fell a little awkwardly. And then after that, he just missed 3 straight weeks. And Mike Vrabel doesn't talk about injuries and all that. So like it was hard to get information about what was going on, but a guy just doesn't miss 3 weeks. Even with, someone like Julio who doesn't even practice that much. So I think that hurt, when you have one quarterback for a decade, like 10 years, and then you have a new one in Tannehill that you're trying to build chemistry with, and you just don't get that time. And then Tannehill was also on the COVID list, late in preseason. So as soon as Julio got back from missing 3 weeks, Tannehill was out for 10 days.
Damn,
so
what a mess
so
the
they
Titans
really,
have been.
yeah. So Julio and Tannehill only had like 4 full practices together.
Oh,
So that was a problem. And then there were just times in the game, last Sunday where he just had some drops. There was the one, in the end zone. I think there was good coverage there, but I think he still should have come up with that. There were a couple others, during the course of the game. And, Mike Vrabel was asked about Julio, yesterday or on Monday. And, he said, he needs to capitalize on his opportunities. And he was also, and this made headlines, how he was, really critical of the, Julio had like an unnecessary roughness penalty early in the game. And, Vrabel said, you can put that in the category of a dumbass expletive. And, so he was not happy with Julio about that. He obviously didn't make a great, first impression in that, game number 1. I think over time, you hope that, he shows more of that Julio Jones of old. But he didn't, get off to a great start. And so, you kind of maybe have concerns about what exactly the Titans got, in this, guy who's obviously going to be in the Hall of Fame, one of the best receivers of all time. But at this stage in his career, not a whole lot of practice time coming in with this Titans offense, doesn't have really chemistry with Tannehill at this point. You kind of wonder what exactly that's going to look like. So I think AJ will be fine. The question is with Julio, so yeah, we'll kind of see. I think, the DK Tyler, tandem is far in ahead, I think, above Julio and AJ at this point. DK is obviously young and ascending. Tyler has been, doing his thing for several years now. And Mike Vrabel had actually, he spoke of Tyler too. He's like, he's the best, like, deep ball receiver for his size that he's seen in a really long time. So he was very, very complimentary of Locke. So, so yeah, this is going to be interesting. Like I said, I think the Seahawks corners, there's an opportunity to build some confidence for Julio and AJ. I just don't know with Julio in particular, how all that's going to pan out as the season wears on.
Yeah, seeing Julio drop the ball the way he did in that game was really. I was like, "Who's this guy wearing number 2?" It can't be Quintorris. Not Quintorris. Not the ball hitting him in the hands in the end zone. It was. I don't know if you watched the broadcast version with the sound on, Ben, on the replay, but they're like giving all the benefit of the doubt. Like, he didn't expect the ball. It's like, man, if the ball hits you in the hands in the end zone,
I didn't catch that. No.
Yeah, I forget who was calling the game, but they were like, "Yeah, it's a." Maybe he just didn't expect it there. And it's like, bro, the ball hit him in the hands in the end zone.
First of all, that's Julio Jones. Second of all, you said it, the ball hit him in his hands. That's it.
Yeah, even if you don't expect it, like catch the ball. It was like, even hearing you recite that Mike Vrabel line, it's like, take advantage of your opportunities, i.e. catch the damn ball.
Another point.
Exactly.
Point. Julio had a 300-yard game.
Yeah, that dude is he's
there's only a handful of people that have done that, let alone in their careers have had 300 yards. So no, he has to catch that. That's all I got to say.
I'm gonna pose this question to you, Ben. Who do you think has the greater advantage this Sunday? DK and Tyler versus the Titans secondary, or AJ and Julio versus the Seahawks cornerbacks?
Birdman hand rub.
Yeah, I would. I would say DK and Tyler, have the advantage. And going back to what I said, I mean, just because of the concerns you have with Julio, I think, the magnitude of what you're getting with Tyler and DK against this Titans secondary, which still, as much turnover as they had in the offseason, I think there's, a lot of, concerns there. Jack Rabbit Jenkins,
Chris cannot
yeah.
stop laughing every time. We talked about this before the show. Like he can't. Because he wants to be called Jackrabbit, right? Like
Yeah, it's
he
because
says
I
Janoris is
guess
a bad name.
it was funny one time. Like we asked him, like, why don't you go by Janoris? He's like, that's not my name. Like he said that with a straight face, and I guess it's because like growing up in Florida, like they chased rabbits or whatever, and
Right.
so
very
that's
Florida.
kind of why. Yeah, that's very Florida. So that's kind of where that comes from. It's still kind of weird saying it, but Jack Rabbit Jenkins is guy came in, he's a starter, and he was out there slipping, man. Like like on the Cardinals' very first play, he gave up a 38-yard catch to Hopkins because he
Oh man,
it was on the Cardinals' very first play, and that kind of he was and he slipped on the play, and he was slipping, and actually the Titans DB coach spoke to us earlier today, and they were like, oh yeah, I guess he had like a footwear issue, but look, it just the coverage. Look, the coverage it just has to be better, and and the thing too, like Jack Rabbit is, he's a bit older too, like he's in his 30s. That was kind of the concern coming in. Like, yeah, he's been a good, press man guy in the past, but he's getting up there in age. You just don't know how he's going to hold up against some of these elite receivers that Titans will have, especially early in the season. I think that game Sunday was just a manifestation of that. So there was there's concerns there, and the thing is, like, the Titans drafted a first-round corner, Caleb Farley, who, if you kind of remember from the draft chatter,
that's the Virginia Tech guy.
Virginia Tech guy who had the back issues.
Yep. Okay.
Exactly, had the back issues, and the thing is, he's like not ready to really play. Like he was active, but it became really apparent over the summer that he's still very rusty. Like, not only did he have the back issues, but like he didn't play last season at Virginia Tech because he opted out because of COVID. So he's had 2 major back surgeries since he last played in 2019, and he missed a full season of football, and he's only been playing corner for like 2 or 3 years.
Jesus.
So yeah, so all of that, there's all that going on with him. So he's really not ready, to have an impact there. Really the only positive at corner was, or I should say one positive was, they have a second-year guy, on the right side, Christian Fulton, who did actually look good, and he's a guy who's probably going to play well for the Titans. Out at LSU, didn't really have a second-round pick in 2020. Missed 10 games because of injury, so we never really got into a rhythm. And this year he's kind of, come in, with a lot of promise, and he had a really good offseason. And he actually had some plays in that game Sunday, despite all the other issues the Titans had in the secondary. And he matched up well actually with Mike Evans when they had joint practices in Tampa over the summer. So he's one reason for optimism there. But between Jack Rabbit, kind of the concerns he had with the slipping and, all that, and then Caleb Farley isn't really ready to go, and then they don't really have much depth beyond that. I mean, they have Elijah Molden, who Seattle people will know because he went to Washington. He's a slot guy. He's still kind of learning, at this point. Outside of the, corner, I mean, Kevin Byard, I think, is still one of the better safeties, in the NFL.
Yeah, he's nice. He had a pick too on Sunday, right?
He had a pick. Yeah, he had a pick. He led the league in interceptions a couple years ago. He's still good. So I mean, I guess there's some reason for hope just in terms of, having that back end help in Kevin Byard. But, I think really the problem, it comes down to like the coverage on third down, with those shifty mobile quarterbacks like Kyler Murray. I mean, I think with the category of, mobile quarterbacks, Kyler is his own category, even just because of how shifty he is. And, I think, when those plays get extended, I think that's when you really see the issues for the Titans, in the back end. There are three, Kevin Byard is the only returning starter, in the secondary. So, I think they're still at a point where they're working on, communication and whatnot. So, they're just, a lot of issues, I think, for the Titans. And then when you have that, tandem of Tyler and DK, it's really going to be tough. to say the least. It's
All
going
right,
to be
start
tough
Tyler
for
and
them.
DK in every fantasy league
I would,
you got.
Yeah, if you got them on your fantasy team, I would for sure go with that. I wouldn't put Julio on your, in your lineup for this week. Maybe he does kind of find some rhythm this week, but again, AJ will be fine. It's, Julio is kind of the concern there, but yeah, the secondary, Titan secondary, they're still trying to figure it out. I mean, see that the defense, the Titans defense overall was just so bad, last year. Like they're
like the worst third down team ever, right?
Yeah, they were historically bad on third down. They gave up like 50. They allowed opponents to convert like 54% of the time on third down. They had 19 sacks for the year, which was like tied for the worst for a playoff team in NFL history, something like that. So they had issues, right? And then they got all these new faces. But like Bud Dupree, on the edge, who is kind of starring for Pittsburgh. But the thing with Bud, like Taylor Lewan, he's coming off an ACL injury too. They gave Bud like an $82 million contract, but he's coming off a torn ACL, and he didn't, he's not himself yet. He wasn't really able to he wasn't much of a factor at all, on Sunday. And so, it doesn't help, for those, new, all those guys on the back end when you're not necessarily getting the kind of pressure you want, especially against those elusive quarterbacks. So I think, Russ is going to be a kind of a challenge, some kind of like the way Kyler was, last week.
I was actually going to ask you about your front seven, defensive line and linebackers, but I kind of got an answer with all that there. I'm guessing there has been minimal improvement. You did mention Bud Dupree, but he's coming off an injury. Is there anyone else that maybe the Seahawks should pay attention to that could be a force on that new revamped offensive line that the Seahawks have versus what you got going on with Tennessee?
Yeah. So like to kind of start off, I will say like, see the Titans even, they did look really good like over the summer. Like I think, for what it's worth, not going up against other teams. I mean, the improvement did show. I think they do have better depth at outside linebacker than they did last year. I do think they have better depth on the interior defensive line than they did last year. Danico Autry, played with the Colts. He's probably one of the more disruptive, historically one of the more disruptive interior, pass rushers in the NFL. And to pair him with a guy with Jeffrey Simmons, who I don't know how familiar with like guys in Seattle, people in Seattle are, but Jeffrey Simmons is going to be like a superstar, like an all-pro caliber guy.
Isn't
like
he vegan too?
He.
That's so random. How do you know that he's vegan?
Because
I think he is.
Sorry to cut you off, but
Yeah.
The reason I bring it up is because I was watching Game Changers and a Tennessee Titans player was on there. And I think it was him, if I'm not mistaken. And he is vegan. And he talked about how his game hasn't been a lot better. He's not as injured as much. He gets banged up, but it's not as severe. So when you said his name, I was like, I think that's him. But sorry, Ben, continue on the defensive lines. My bad.
Yeah, no problem. No,
that was so random. I was like, what do you know this guy? Like, how do you, with that? I'm gonna look it up.
I explained it now.
No, I got it. Now Simmons is also the guy he was like hurt, right? They took him knowing that he was hurt in the draft. Yeah.
Yes, that's the thing about the Titans. They've taken a lot of gambles on, with their first round picks, like especially on guys who've been injured, like Caleb Farley, like I said. But Jeff Simmons, he tore his ACL in the pre-draft process in 2019, and so he didn't get going until the season started. But It turns out it was the right gamble because he's going to be probably an all-pro at some point. So they do have some pieces there, but I think I would say with the linebackers, like on the inside, Jayon Brown, another guy who I don't think people in Seattle are too familiar with. He's probably one of the better cover inside linebackers in the NFL. Like he can go out and cover. But he was probably a little rusty. Like he was another guy who was hurt last year. He missed I want to say 6-7 games last year. He was on IR, so he's still kind of getting back in the groove. Bud Dupree is still getting back into the groove. So I think there are a lot of guys there who will probably be better later in the season. So yeah, I think that would be what I have to say with that. I think that the most immediate threat for the Seahawks would be Jeff Simmons, on the inside, and pairing with Danico Autry. I think having that interior protection for the Seahawks has to be on point, going up against those guys.
Oh, okay. He hasn't gone vegan, but he did change his diet.
Okay, there's another player I'm thinking of that
Okay.
did go vegan for the maybe it's not with the Titans anymore, but I do remember seeing it on Game Changers.
Yeah, man, I couldn't believe that was the most random thing that's probably been said on the show. It's just like, yeah, is he vegan? It's like, what? Well, honestly, Ben, I commend you, man, because you working real hard to not say the Titans defense is trash. So I'll just say it for you because these guys are not good. I'm watching the replay of the game, man, and Kyler just throwing the wide open dudes. Elijah Molden got burnt on the Christian Kirk touchdown. You ever see that one? I tweeted the clip of it. It was not good. But you're right. They're getting better. They're working on it. I commend you, man.
No, yeah, yeah, definitely trying hard to be nice. And look, like I said, they will be. I think they will be better later in the season. I mean, 6 new starters.
I feel you. The benefit of the doubt should be given to some extent, but yeah, like that
to some extent, yeah. But they're bad right now, and it is kind of a slap in the face to a lot of fans because that was kind of like the Achilles heel last year. I mean, you had the number 4 scoring offense in the NFL last season. Titans were able to do whatever they want, run or pass, but then you have a defense giving up like 30 points a game. You're not really going to do anything. And you have historically bad third down D. And so there was a lot of hope, this year with kind of overhauling the defensive side of the roster that, you'll have, better production. And, obviously it was not a great start despite, them talking about confidence and swagger, over the preseason. They were actually like the number 1 defense in like yards allowed and gave up like just, opponents only converted, I want to say like 19% of their third downs in the preseason, but it's the preseason, right? So, but people were optimistic that, okay, maybe, it will kind of carry into the season. And then you face Kyler Murray and that offense to start and just a big slap in the face. So that's where the Titans defense is at right now.
Yeah. I think that's probably what's I forget who's the GM of the Titans. Who's running the Titans?
John Robinson.
Yeah, so I think that's what's probably different than like other teams, like for example, the Chiefs, when their defense was trash and they had an amazing offense in 2018. They went out and like we're gonna try to get some defensive play. That's when they traded for Frank Clark.
Exactly.
That might be when they signed the Honey Badger too. I want to say like they made the efforts to fix the defense. What do you know? They go win a Super Bowl with a defense that is improved. I think another like the Cowboys defense last year. Trash. I think they used every draft pick they had on defense. I don't know how that'll pan out, but it's the effort. No, I think really they drafted like 3 linebackers, like a corner. I think literally every pick they had was like defense. It's very weird to see the Titans not. I mean, Bud Dupree using a high draft pick on Farley, but like that defense was so bad. I feel like they needed to do a lot more. And it's strange, and this is to spin it back to the Seahawks. Like I remember talking to Trey Flowers, cornerback to Seahawks. I remember asking him like in the locker room, I want to say 2019, maybe 2018, just like who are some guys that you like watching? And I remember him saying the whole Titans secondary because they were good at the time. Who they have at that time? Adoree, Bayard, Logan Ryan.
Adoree, yeah, I mean Adoree wasn't great. He was good
He was
at
bad. I
times
can't
in
remember.
Tennessee.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a first rounder, but he was good at times. But there are a lot of bad, feelings about him to some degree in Nashville. Logan Ryan,
Yeah.
was a very effective player. And they had a lot of pressure packages that they kind of put together with him too. Like I think he had like 5 sacks one year.
Jesus. And everything's just gone downhill since then.
Yeah, and the thing too, and it's crazy, right? Because I think the reputation with the Titans is like, be a great defensive team. You have a defensive-minded head coach with, Mike Vrabel. We know what he did as a player, and with the Patriots and whatnot. But yeah, I think kind of the issues really started with kind of the defensive coordinator spot, because a lot of people were just like, couldn't believe it when Vrabel didn't name a defensive coordinator last year. Like the Titans didn't have a defensive coordinator. They had
the numbers reflect that.
Yeah. So, the first couple years they had Dean Pease as their DC, who followed Arthur Smith to Atlanta to be his defensive coordinator. So they had Dean Pease, and he was a really, really solid defensive coordinator for the Titans, helping out Vrabel. But so last year they didn't have a DC. Their outside linebackers coach was the play caller, which was really weird. He was kind of like their de facto defensive coordinator, but he was doubling down as the outside linebackers coach. So the communication was never really on point. It started at the top. So, that was a really big issue, last season. And so, but what actually happened was that outside linebackers coach, who was kind of doubling as the de facto defensive coordinator, he's now the official defensive coordinator. So they just promoted him. So like, they're like, okay, maybe that was a mess. We'll just, we're just going to say you're the DC now. We'll get another outside linebackers coach. And so yeah, now the defense is being run by the guy who was kind of running it last year, but he kind of wasn't because he was a position coach. So there was a lot of kind of confusion about, kind of who was in charge, and I think it trickled down to the players, and see, that kind of makes, what happened Sunday a slap in the face too, because the entire summer they talked about how the communication is better, and the guy Shane Bowen, who's now the official defensive coordinator, he basically sounded empowered. He sounded like liberated, like this is my defense now.
He probably just got a raise.
Probably. So yeah, that, kind of the way the defense was talking heading into the season, kind of gave people some hope. But then again, it was just kind of like that game against Arizona. It's like, man, we got a long way to go. Got a long way to go. So.
It also shows the difference between the Titans and some of those other examples I gave with the Chiefs and the Cowboys. Those teams both fired their defensive coordinators and brought in new guys to fix their defense. I forget who the Chiefs hired, but obviously the Cowboys went and brought in Dan Quinn. The Titans are like, nah, let's just use the same dude.
Exactly, and that's why a lot of fans were kind of angry about that. Like, okay, like we get that he wasn't really fully the defensive coordinator, but he was still. You guys were still saying he was calling plays on game day, and so why not bring in a fresh voice to be that defensive coordinator? And so they didn't do that. But what they did do was bring in Jim Schwartz, who, former longtime, defensive coach, former, defensive coordinator, whatnot.
He's the guy who pissed off DK.
Exactly. About the whole Calvin Johnson thing last year.
Oh, God. So the Seahawks are going to score 30. What's the spread?
Yeah. So basically
Seahawks 6.5.
So basically, Schwartz is he's what they're calling him is a senior defensive assistant. So he's basically like a sounding board for Shane Bowen, the defensive coordinator. So that was kind of their effort to bring in a new voice. It wasn't for the coordinator spot. It was bringing in a veteran defensive mind and like having him as a guy you can kind of talk to and stuff like that. So that's kind of how they tried to address that.
Yeah, Seahawks. Yeah, okay.
It's down. It went down to 5.5, but
Seahawks
it was 6.5.
are minus 5.5. Yeah, take that and take the over 54. Yeah, I definitely take that.
I did look it up, and this was a former Tennessee Titan player from 2018 because that's when Game Changers came out on Netflix. So after doing some research, I'm sorry, Ben, the player I was thinking of wasn't even around. Isn't even around. So
You're not gonna tell us who it is?
I forgot his name actually.
I thought you just looked it up. Oh, what a
went through all of that. Went through all of that and to come back and not even give us.
I was
the name.
hoping
Come on
Mike
now.
wouldn't ask. I was like, please don't ask the name because I literally was listening and trying to do.
Is
all
it this
these things
dude, Derrick Morgan?
Derrick Morgan.
See, even I did. I didn't even look it up. I kind of knew. That's all right. But yeah, and I don't know. We're not a gambling show, even though we're about to do over and under right now. With
0-1, by the way. Shout out to Mr. Holder over there.
What? We're 0-1 with what?
Over and under, man.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay,
Yeah,
he got his prediction right.
He screwed it up, man.
Yeah, that's right. But definitely take the Seahawks to score 30 based on everything that Ben is saying here. Like, I've heard nothing to suggest that the Titans are going to be good in this particular game defensively. But the over-under, actually, we're going to focus on Derrick Henry. We cited the stat earlier about his 100-yard games, and now he doesn't usually have 2 games under that back-to-back. So we're going to set the over-under right at 99.5. What do you got for rushing yards for Derrick Henry on Sunday, Ben?
Ooh.
You hear that, Chris? That means we got him.
Exactly.
That's all right. Take your time.
He'll definitely. I think the O-line will be better. So I would say Derrick's numbers will be better. Okay, let's say this. I think he'll hit 100. I think he'll hit 100.
Right. Taking the over.
Taking the over. There it is.
I would. Yeah. With the run game, I think they'll kind of get back to it a little bit. So I would take the over on this one.
All right, I like it. We'll see.
Check, blue check. How we want to call you, Ben? Look at you.
That's good. Yeah,
taking the over.
It would be very surprising if Derrick went under 100 for back-to-back game. What did he even have on
78? 15 for 78. Was that it?
17 carries for 58 yards.
58 yards.
Yeah.
Jesus, that is garbage.
Yeah,
wow.
We know that's not going to happen again. I mean, with Derrick. I guess that's a take. That's a
good take right there.
You saw what the Seahawks did to
I don't see
Taylor.
Derrick is not going to have a performance like that again.
Yeah, you know what is interesting though? When I watched how bad their run game was, it was interesting to see. I don't know if Derrick Henry needs a head of steam, but like, because they do all those runs out of under center, he does get those 2 or 3 yards to like get his feet going. And then if he's got good blocking, he's not getting touched until like 2 or 3 yards after the line of scrimmage. So now Derrick has basically ran unimpeded for like, I don't know, 5 or 6 yards. And when you're that big and that good, it then becomes hard to tackle you. But he's not like I would say, who's good at like getting out of trouble. Even like Chris Carson. Like Chris can get hit in the backfield and then spin out of it or whatever, or even like a Saquon, Zeke, like Derrick, needs that head of steam. So it will be, and from what I can tell, it looks like the Cardinals play a similar front, that kind of like that 5-man front. That's what they were using against the Titans. I'm all nerdy now with football these days, guys.
That's called growth. Mike.
I really am like studying fronts and stuff now, and
it's the next level, man.
There you go. That's all it is, man.
Level.
I'm so nerdy in that way. That doesn't feel, I don't look like a football nerd though. You know, like when the people make fun of the guys online or the players make fun of the nerds and it's like guy in his mom's basement or something like that. Like, I got my own spot.
The guy probably looks like the Indianapolis Colts kicker who was taking a picture with DK. That's probably what you're
Rodrigo Blankenship.
Yeah, that's like exactly. That's what you're thinking of. You're like, oh, that's the football nerd.
Let me see. What is this guy? How you spell that? Rodrigo Blankenship. Oh, came right up. Okay.
Just look at the picture of him.
Oh, yes. Yes. Oh, okay. All right. Jeez. Yeah, that's what I feel like people picture when they picture a football nerd. Like, I don't know if this guy is one, but
he's a kicker. I don't know.
His nickname is Hot Rod. All right. I don't think kickers should have nicknames like that, man. Like, there's one dude, we're getting so off topic. We're about to get out of here after we get Ben's prediction. But there's a dude who calls himself the Money Badger. Yeah, there's a kicker. Is it the Chargers kicker? Is a kicker who calls himself the Money Badger, and he
Yeah, I
just
believe it was the guy the Titans actually just released, Michael Badgley. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah, get out of here.
Chris, can you look at? I think
What's
you
his
should look
name?
that up. But
Is it Michael?
Michael Badgley?
Michael Badge. Okay,
Yep,
Badge.
here we go. Yeah. Nicknamed the Money Badger. It's him. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. He's the Money Badger, and he missed a field goal and an extra point in the second quarter. And then the Titans released him the next day.
So you guys don't have a kicker right now, do you?
They don't have a kicker on the
Wow.
roster.
We're going for two.
Oh my God. I didn't realize that was him. Way to spin it back to being relevant to the podcast.
Yeah,
That's
definitely change his nickname immediately.
the only reason I know that is because everyone knows I'm team never kick. And good for the Titans not having a kicker. You don't have to kick.
boy.
Kickoffs are going to be an issue though. But
Yeah,
I know that because he was the Chargers kicker and it was Monday night. This was last year actually. It was
What do you know?
Saints Chargers, I think, because Justin Herbert played really well. And they said, like, oh, he calls himself the Money Badger, and he missed a kick that would have won the game. I'm pretty sure.
And they got him out of there quickly,
Yeah.
or didn't
Oh.
re-sign him.
Oh, man. Poor guy. That's why that Exhibit A, kickers not having nicknames. Hot Rod, Money Badger. I don't even really like Legatron.
Who's Legatron?
Yo,
It's-
Legatron, huh?
Yeah.
Who
Who
is
is that for?
I feel like that's, isn't it Greg Zerline?
I wouldn't know. All these nicknames. What is going on in the NFL?
I feel like it was Legatron. Oh, Greg DeLeg. Oh, no. It's Legatron. Yeah,
Yeah.
Greg Zerline.
He's pretty good though.
He's the well,
I
you
get
have
it.
to be if your name's.
Well, clearly not. The last dude was the Money Badger, and he's been fired twice for not being able to make kicks.
Yeah, no, that's never kick. Good for Mike Vrabel not having a kicker. Are they just gonna go with no kicker?
No.
Nah, they'll get a kicker. See, the thing with the Titans, I mean, they've had a kicking nightmare since 2019. I mean, it was bad. Like, at 2 points during the summer, they thought they had their guy, but then the first one, Tucker McCann, he got hurt in the preseason opener, and then so they waived him as injured, and then Sam Ficken, who I think kicked for the Rams at one
Yeah,
point.
he did.
He emerged as the guy later in the summer, but then he landed on IR the day before the Arizona game. That's when they brought up Badgley, who was signed to the practice squad just on Friday. So
Damn.
Badgley was on the practice squad Friday, signed to the active roster Saturday when Ficken went to IR, kicked poorly in the game, and then was released the next day.
Damn, he
And
didn't make
then,
it 72 hours?
You're trying to do way too much math on the pod right now, bro.
Jeez, that's
You're trying-
unfortunate.
Damn, that's a bad weekend though. At least he got the
Yeah.
game checked.
Yeah, he got his face.
For real though, I think that's the difference between. I think on the practice squad you're getting like 9 Gs or something like that, but if you play in the game, you get like 36 Gs. So I mean, yeah, that is a good consolation.
So he made 45 bands, and then was like, "Yeah, man.
So
appreciate your
you're
service.
the Money Badger. You should you
should make your kicks.
You should make the team here.
That
But
too.
that is how did the kicker end up on IR?
He
Groin.
got like a groin injury like in the middle of the week, like on a Thursday practice. He just showed up.
It's not
on the
funny, but
injury
damn.
report.
He
Yeah,
missed the
no,
stretch.
you literally can't make up worse injury luck or make up worse kicker luck for the Titans in general. It's been a nightmare for fans here.
Oh, man.
Ocho Cinco might be available. Just throwing that out there. He
No,
wouldn't
they
mind
should
kicking.
trade for
Is
that
he-
dude on the Titans. The dude on the Texans that did the DB that did the kickoff. You guys didn't see that?
No.
Reed.
Yeah, it's I think it's Eric Reed's little brother.
Eric Reed's little brother. Yeah.
Yeah, you got. I'll show you the
Hey.
video after the podcast. But yeah, maybe they could do that. I'll show you after. But all right,
Hot take time, Ben.
no, just give us a prediction. You
No,
don't need-
it's hot take. A winner and a score. Don't do that, Mike.
is that a hot take?
hot?
Is that? I don't think that's that
Yeah,
hot unless I say it's
depends,
gonna be a blowout.
It's fair.
I would say Seahawks win.
All right.
I think it will be close though. I'd say let's say 28-24. I
Wow.
think
Okay.
it will be closer. I think the offense, will show up a little bit more, after, a couple more practices to kind of work out the kinks and whatnot. And like I said, Derrick Henry, I think they'll be able to establish him a little bit more. But for this defense to have Kyler last week and then to have Russ this week, his ability to like extend plays, like especially on like third downs, And then to have DK on one side, Tyler on the other, I just think it's going to be a tough go. So I think the Titans will, have a better showing from their offense, but for Seahawks' first home game of the year, and it's going to be a packed crowd at Lumen, and we know how crazy that's going to be. For first, full capacity crowd, since 2019, and on top of their overwhelmingly advantage, like over the Titans defense, like I don't see them losing. So I would say it's going to be a close one, but I have Seattle on top.
All right, you guys. So let's see. In the betting, you have the Titans covering and the under. So that's actually not what I would have expected there. I would probably take the over. Well, I don't know. It depends on how much I think the Titans score, but I'll probably take the over. Because if even a 31-24 game is a cover, and that's just over. That's 55.
Because it's 50. Okay, yeah.
We're doing way too much math on the show. That's when we gotta get out of here. Ben, thank you so much, man. We're very happy for you. I'm proud of you doing your thing in Tennessee. Glad you're verified as well. That makes 2 of the 3 people on this program today verified. And we can let everyone just figure out who the person is that is not. Man, what is your Twitter handle before we get you out of here, man?
Yeah, first of all, thank you guys for having me on. I got time for you guys anytime. Happy to probably see you guys both. I don't know about you, Chris, but I'll definitely be seeing you, Mike, on Sunday. But yeah, for people to follow me at, Ben Y Arthur, Ben, then Arthur with a Y in between, one word. So you could find me there. I like to think that I'm, just the fact that I covered the Titans and I covered the Seahawks for 3 years, it kind of gives me, a nice perspective on both teams. So, from the Titans perspectives, you 12s out there, give me a follow. I don't know how many, I know a ton of Seahawks fans just like dropped me as soon as I said I was leaving for Nashville. I think just a few people follow me because of Elijah Molden, because of the Seattle connection. So hopefully maybe I get some of those followers back for Sunday. But again, thank you guys for having me on. It was a pleasure.
All right, and thank you guys for tuning into the Seahawks Man to Man podcast. Shout out to everyone who's been listening on the audio versions. But as a reminder to you guys, we're on YouTube as well. We're trying to get these views up, trying to get these subscribers up so we can start doing some more dope stuff. Apparently, there's some arbitrary number that you have to have of subscribers to start doing fancy
1K.
stuff. Yeah, it's 1,000. All right, so let's do this. Our journey to 1K. Shout out to homie Ben Arthur for stopping by. We'll catch you guys after the game on Sunday. We are out.